The bourbon in Harvey Patel's glass had gone warm. He sat in the dark kitchen, phone in hand, staring at the number he'd just called. 3 rings. A man's voice, tense and urgent. Is she okay? Did he find out? Harvey's throat had tightened. Find out what? The silence that followed felt like falling. Then, barely audible. She didn't tell you about. The line went dead. Harvey set the phone down slowly, his filmmaker's mind already cataloging details, building narrative threads. 27 years old, married to Christy for 4 years, and he'd never felt this particular species of dread. Outside, rain hammered the windows of their Portland home. It was Thursday night, 11:47 p.m. Tomorrow was Friday. He pulled up the phone records again on his laptop. The number glowed accusatory, 127 calls over 3 months. Every single one on Friday at 11 p.m. Every call lasting between 8 and 14 minutes. And Christy, his wife who couldn't keep a secret about surprise parties, had hidden this perfectly. Harvey had built a career exposing frauds. His documentary series, The Truth Beneath, had taken down pyramid schemes, fake charities, and con artists. He knew deception's architecture, the small lies that supported big ones, the patterns people thought were invisible. But finding those patterns in his own marriage felt like discovering a tumor. He opened a new file on his laptop, Project Friday. If Christy was in trouble, he'd find out. If she was lying, he'd know. Either way, the truth would surface. It always did. Harvey woke to the smell of coffee and Christy's laugh echoing from downstairs. He descended to find her on the phone with her sister, Daisy Finley, gesturing animatedly about some story. When she saw him, her smile didn't waver. Morning, babe. Coffee's ready. He studied her as she finished the call. Christy had been a paralegal when they met, now working remote for a law firm in Seattle. Dark hair, quick wit, the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday. The woman making him breakfast looked nothing like someone harboring secrets. Big plans today? Harvey asked, keeping his voice casual. The usual. Depositions to prep, case files to review. She kissed his cheek. You? Editing the Portland housing fraud piece. Might run long. He paused. Don't wait up if I'm late. That evening, Harvey told Christy he'd be at his studio downtown, working. Instead, he parked 3 blocks from their house and waited. At 10:43 p.m., Christy emerged, got in her car, and drove. Harvey followed, maintaining distance, a skill he'd learned filming surveillance footage for documentaries. She pulled into a 24-hour diner on the east side, sliding into a booth near the back. At 10:58 p.m., a man entered. Tall, expensive coat, the kind of deliberate grooming that screamed money and image control. Harvey snapped photos through the rain-streaked window as the man sat across from Christy. At exactly 11 p.m., Christy pulled out her phone. Harvey's phone buzzed. Blocked number. He answered, hearing nothing but ambient noise, diner sounds, muffled voices. Christy had but dialed him. Or had she? Through the window, he watched her touch her phone, then set it face down on the table, still connected. She was giving him access. The man across from her spoke, and Harvey strained to hear through his phone's speaker. Last payment, Christy. Then you're done. Byron and I keep our promises. That's what you said 3 months ago, Derek. Her voice carried exhaustion. I've given you everything you asked for. Derek. The name from the phone bill. Harvey started recording. You've given us data. Client files, settlement amounts, legal strategies. Very helpful. Derek's smile was serpentine. But there's one more thing we need. Christy's hands clenched. I won't testify. That was never part of this. Your brother-in-law's drunk driving case from 6 years ago says otherwise. Derek leaned back. Remember? You were in the car. Sidney Randolph, your sister's husband, killed that teenager. You helped cover it up. One anonymous tip to the police, and you're an accomplice to manslaughter. Harvey's blood turned to ice. Christy's sister Daisy had been married to Sidney Randolph, a real estate developer. The marriage ended 4 years ago, right before Harvey and Christy's wedding. He'd never known why. Sidney's dead, Christy whispered. He died in that car accident 2 years ago. But you're not. And neither is Daisy. Derek slid a folder across the table. One more job. Then the evidence disappears forever. Harvey ended the recording and drove home, his mind racing through implications and possibilities. By the time Christy returned at 12:30 a.m., he was in bed, pretending to sleep, his phone hidden under his pillow with the recording safely uploaded to 3 separate cloud servers. Saturday morning, Harvey drove to Eugene under the pretense of filming Betrayal for his housing project. Instead, he visited Evan Carroll, a retired FBI agent who'd consulted on 2 of Harvey's documentaries. They met at a coffee shop overlooking the Willamette River. Derek Stevens and Byron Lester, Evans said, pulling up files on his tablet after Harvey explained the situation. You've stumbled into something interesting. Stevens runs a litigation consulting firm, supposedly helps law firms with trial strategy. In reality, he's been under investigation for jury tampering, witness intimidation, and insider trading based on stolen legal information. And Byron Lester? His muscle, ex-lawyer, disbarred for ethical violations. Now he handles the dirty work, threats, blackmail, evidence destruction. Evans studied Harvey. If they're blackmailing your wife for legal intel, they're using her firm's cases to rig outcomes. We're talking millions in fraudulent settlements. Harvey's jaw tightened. There's more. They have evidence that Christie covered up a vehicular manslaughter 6 years ago. Her sister's husband killed someone while drunk. Christie was in the car. Evan whistled low. That's leverage. But here's the thing. If that evidence exists and they haven't used it yet, they need her for something bigger than weekly phone calls. Derek mentioned testifying. Then they're building a case. Probably framing someone or trying to win a trial they should lose. They need Christie to lie under oath. Use her paralegal credentials for credibility. Evan leaned forward. You can't go to the police yet. If Christie's compromised, she'll face charges too. You need proof that she's being coerced, not complicit. Harvey nodded slowly, the shape of a plan forming. I need to know what really happened 6 years ago, and I need to make Derek and Byron reveal their full operation. Careful, Harvey. These aren't small-time con artists you can expose with a camera and some gotcha footage. I know. Harvey's smile was sharp. That's why I'm going to give them exactly what they want. Sunday evening, Harvey sat Christie down. I know about Derek Stevens. The color drained from her face. She tried to stand, but Harvey gently caught her hand. I'm not angry. I'm scared for you. Tell me everything. The story spilled out through tears. 6 years ago, Christie had been driving home from dinner with her sister and Sydney. Sydney insisted on driving the last few miles, drunk and belligerent. He hit a 17-year-old boy on a bike, panicked, and kept driving. The boy, Philip Shepard, died. Christie had been terrified, in shock. Sydney threatened her, said they'd all go to prison. He staged a hit-and-run report the next day, claiming someone sideswiped his car in a parking lot. Daisy, desperate to protect her husband and her marriage, begged Christie to stay silent. Christie had carried the guilt ever since. After Sydney died, I thought it was over, Christie said. Then 3 months ago, Derek appeared at my office. He had photos, police scanner recordings, everything. He said he'd been investigating Sydney for insurance fraud and found evidence of the hit and run. He'd give me the evidence if I provided information on my firm's cases. What does he want you to testify about? A medical malpractice case. Northridge Hospital versus the Shepard family. Christie's voice broke. Harvey, it's Philip Shepard's parents. They're suing the hospital, claiming their son would have survived if the ER had been properly staffed that night. Derek wants me to testify that I overheard the parents' attorney, Gustavo Adkins, discussing fabricating evidence. He wants the case dismissed. Harvey felt fury crystallize into focus. Derek wasn't just blackmailing Christie. He was protecting Northridge Hospital, probably getting paid massive fees to ensure they won. And he was using the very victim of Sydney's crime to do it. The trial's Friday, Christie whispered. I'm supposed to testify Friday afternoon. You're not going to, Harvey said firmly. And Derek Stevens is going to regret ever threatening my wife. Monday through Thursday, Harvey worked with mechanical precision. He contacted Gustavo Adkins under the guise of making a documentary about medical malpractice reform. Adkins, eager for publicity, agreed to an interview. During their conversation, Harvey carefully mentioned that he'd heard rumors of witness tampering in the Northridge case. Adkins went pale. Who told you that? Let me guess. Someone's trying to get a witness to claim you're unethical? I received an anonymous tip last week that someone would make that exact accusation. Adkins pulled out his phone. I've been documenting everything, preparing for it. Harvey smiled. I think we can help each other. He also reached out to Joni Weaver, a court reporter who'd appeared in one of his documentaries about judicial corruption. She owed him a favor and happened to work the courthouse where the Northridge trial was scheduled. Harvey needed eyes and ears inside. On Wednesday, he visited Philip Shepard's grave. The headstone was simple: "Beloved son, gone too soon." Harvey laid flowers and made a silent promise. Thursday night, Harvey set the final pieces. He'd hired Neil Wagner, a private investigator, to trail Byron Lester and document his daily intimidation rounds, visits to other potential witnesses, thinly veiled threats, the machinery of Derek's operation. The footage was damning. He'd also done something risky: created a fake legal memo on Christie's firm's letterhead detailing a fictional settlement strategy for a different case. He'd left it where Christie would accidentally discover it, knowing she'd pass it to Derek. But the memo contained information about a non-existent case with details that would trace back directly to Derek if he acted on it. Friday morning, Harvey called Derek Stevens from a burner phone. "This is Harvey Patel, Christie's husband. We need to talk before the trial." Silence. Then, "I have no idea what you're talking about. You have 5 hours to meet me at Riverside Park, or I go to the police with recordings of you blackmailing my wife, plus evidence of witness tampering in the Northridge case. Your choice. You're bluffing. Test me." Harvey hung up. At 2 p.m., Derek appeared at the park, Byron Lester lurking nearby. Harvey sat on a bench, camera bag beside him, though the real recording devices were hidden in his jacket and the nearby tree. "You've made a mistake," Derek said coldly. "Have I? Because from where I sit, you're about to lose everything." Harvey pulled out his phone. "I have recordings of you blackmailing Christie. I have evidence of your witness tampering operation. I have documentation of Byron's intimidation tactics. And I have proof that you fabricated evidence to blackmail my wife in the first place." Derek's composure cracked slightly. "That evidence about the hit and run is real, is it? Because I had a forensic analyst examine the evidence you showed Christie. The metadata on those photos is interesting, created 4 months ago, not 6 years ago. The police scanner recording? AI-generated audio. You never had real evidence. You created it. This was a bluff, but Harvey sold it with documentary-honed confidence." Derek's eye twitch told him he'd guessed correctly. "You constructed an elaborate blackmail scheme," Harvey continued, "based on Christie's guilt about an accident that, yes, she should have reported, but that you had no actual evidence of. You preyed on a woman's trauma to corrupt legal proceedings and defraud a grieving family. That's your business model." Byron stepped forward threateningly, but Derek raised a hand. "What do you want?" "I want you to walk into that courthouse right now and confess to Judge Tracy Conway that you've been tampering with witnesses in the Northridge case. I want you to name everyone you've blackmailed, every case you've corrupted, and I want you to hand over any fabricated evidence you created regarding my wife." Derek laughed. "Or what? You'll release your recordings? They're inadmissible. You'll destroy your wife's career too." "No, I'll release my documentary." Harvey smiled. "See, I've spent the week filming a special episode of The Truth Beneath. It features you, Byron, your victims, legal experts, and a particularly damning interview with Derek Houston, your former partner who you forced out of the business 3 years ago. He had a lot to say about your methods." Derek's face drained of color. "You spoke to Derek? Lovely guy? Very detailed records. He's been waiting years for someone to take you down." Harvey stood. "The documentary airs online in 6 hours. Tagged to every legal ethics board and law enforcement agency in the Pacific Northwest. Unless you confess first. You're insane. We'll sue you into oblivion." "With what money?" "The second your clients realize you've been rigging cases, they'll turn on you. The legal fees alone will bankrupt you." "And Byron?" Harvey turned to the larger man. "The FBI has a file on you already. They'll use Derek's confession to build a RICO case. You're both done." Byron moved fast, but Harvey had anticipated it. As Byron grabbed for him, Evan Carroll emerged from behind nearby trees with 2 federal agents. The real reason Harvey had chosen this location. "Byron Lester, you're under arrest for witness intimidation and conspiracy to obstruct justice," Evan announced, producing handcuffs. "Derek Stevens, you're invited to come with us voluntarily, or we can make this official." Derek's lawyer instincts kicked in. "I want my attorney." "Of course. But you should know, Gustavo Adkins filed an emergency motion an hour ago, presenting evidence of your tampering scheme. Judge Conway issued a warrant for your records. Your office is being searched right now." Evan smiled. "Your move." The Northridge Hospital case concluded 3 weeks later. Without Derek's interference, the Shepard family won a significant settlement. The hospital's negligent staffing practices were exposed, leading to systemic reforms. Derek Stevens and Byron Lester faced multiple counts of fraud, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice. Derek Houston's testimony, combined with Neil Wagner's surveillance footage and Harvey's recordings, built an irrefutable case. Both men accepted plea deals, 7 years for Derek, 5 for Byron. Christie worked with prosecutors, providing testimony about the blackmail while they granted her immunity regarding the hit and run. She voluntarily reached out to the authorities about Sidney's crime. The case was complicated by Sidney's death, but Christie testified at a hearing, finally unburdening herself of 6 years of guilt. The district attorney declined to press charges, citing her cooperation and the coercive circumstances. Daisy Finley struggled initially with the revelations about her late husband, but ultimately supported her sister. The two grew closer, united by shared trauma and healing. Harvey's documentary, The Truth Beneath the Blackmail Business, won regional acclaim and led to policy reforms in how courts handle witness intimidation. He received interview requests from legal ethics organizations and law schools. One evening in early winter, Harvey and Christie stood at Philip Shepard's grave again. Christie placed flowers, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to the headstone. Harvey held her as she cried, then gently guided her back to the car. The truth had nearly destroyed them, but it had also freed them. Trust would take time to rebuild, but they were committed to the work. As they drove home through Portland's rain-slicked streets, Christie reached for Harvey's hand. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I never will," Harvey said simply. And he meant it. The phone records from those 127 Friday night calls were now evidence in a federal case. The number that had haunted Harvey's nightmares was disconnected. Derek Stevens would have 7 years to regret ever making his first call. Justice, Harvey had learned, didn't always arrive quickly. But when it came, it was worth the wait.